This is a Hot Pie Original. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the DNP-CD Sports Podcast. I'm Chad Fisher alongside my co-host, Tony Farmer. How you doing, brother?
Dude, I'm doing so good today, man. Looking forward to talking about the NBA draft.
Yeah, me too, man. It's one of my favorite sports, probably my favorite sport. And it's an awesome time right now for the NBA. We got the draft coming up. The NBA Finals are just concluded. And it's going to be interesting, man, because there's a lot of polarizing players in the draft this year. A lot of people are saying it's very top-heavy, like the first 5 guys are franchise-altering type of talents. And then they're saying that after the top 5, it's a little top-heavy and everything like that, and the talent kind of thins out. But I think there's a lot of talent all across the board. I think you can find some really good guys. Corey Kispert's a guy out of Gonzaga that I feel like is going to make a team a lot better. Great shooter. And it's going to be interesting to talk to Jordan, our guest, Jordan Zirm, about who he thinks could have a breakout year next year.
For sure, man. I would love to ask Jordan about that block in Game 4 that Giannis had. Yeah. I'm going to ask you right now, actually, Chad.
Well, you know, I'm a Cavs fan, man, so I'm going to say that LeBron's block, first of all, it was Game 7, 2 minutes to go. You know what I'm saying? Everything was on the line. At that point in the game, many people weren't scoring. It was kind of a stalemate. We were going back and forth. Everybody was missing shots and everything. It was a very low-scoring game, that game. 93-89 was the final. Very low-scoring game, especially by today's standards. And so it meant more, man. You know what I'm saying? When he blocked that, I honestly thought, as a Cavs fan, I was like, we're going to win, man. They're just not scoring. And so it was an amazing block. Don't get me wrong. But I heard some people talking shit on Twitter like, oh, that's better than the best block of all time. And I'm like, y'all are drunk.
Let's put the meaning of the block and the time of the game aside. Athletically, like, what do you think was a more impressive
Still LeBron,
block?
man. Because he ran 94 feet. He was in the corner, ran all the way down. I was watching him as the game was taking place. I was watching him out of the corner of my eye, and I knew he was there because I watched him his whole career, and I knew that he had the ability to come down and make that block. And I was watching him the whole time, and when I saw him jump up to get that juncture in the game, running that far, to the way he timed it, the way he didn't foul him, I thought it was amazing. Of course, Giannis's block was amazing too, but we're talking about the best block in NBA history.
I disagree, but I see your perspective. Can we agree on this? The fucking television broadcast should have shown a replay of Giannis's block. What was up with that?
I don't know, dude. They're not like the best, I'll be honest, man. The refs have kind of ruined some of those games too, man, which has been disappointing because it feels like sometimes when you get down to the late few minutes of the game, it just is like moves at a snail's pace, man. It's just like a foul, and it's like every foul is terrible. You know, it's a terrible call. So,
and I'm gonna go back to Game 4 again because I think that was like some of the most egregious, terrible calls. How about the call with the trap in the corner? Literally no contact was made, and they blew the whistle. I think anticipating,
they do that a lot,
assuming that there was going to be a foul, man. And those are the kind of plays that, like, if you make a bad call and you're an official, I understand it. Like there was contact and it was harder than you thought and someone flopped. Okay, that's cool. But when there's literally not contact made, like you're literally just imagining something happening, that is a call that I have a problem with. Like, how do you blow the whistle for something that literally did not occur?
You have a lot of problems with their calls, man. They're just officiating has been atrocious this year. I know they're under a lot of pressure and they're not getting home to see their families. I read the other day that they were out for anywhere from 20 to 25 days at a time before being able to get home and stuff. I know that's tough, but it feels like they're getting worse and worse as time goes on.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that HD TV makes their jobs harder? That these calls were just as bad in the 90s and we just didn't have the technology to realize how fucking bad they were?
I'm not sure, man. That's a good question. It's I just think the game is sped up it's so fast. These players are so athletic, but they're just not. I just don't think they're that good. And I think a lot of them have like biases, and a lot of them are arrogant as fuck too. You know, Scott Foster's a jackass, dude. That he thinks everyone came to see him. It's really annoying. That dude's an asshole.
Yeah, there's a couple baseball MLB umpires like
Same
that
way.
as well.
Exactly.
For sure.
But let's take a second to tell everybody about our favorite sponsor on the show here, Oddsshark. Oddsshark is your source for the latest odds from leading authorities, expert editorial content, the hottest sports news, and detailed matchup picks. Looking for statistics and trends for an upcoming game? Oddsshark has that too, and it's free. In-depth expert analysis, odds, and trends to help you make the sharp game day picks. They got decades of stats in their databases, and their insiders give you takes so hot they sizzle. That's hot. They're your one-stop shop for all your odds info on sports and pop culture events. So if you want to get a better understanding of the odds and the math behind the numbers, how the line is set, why the lines move during the week, Oddsshark will give you all the tools you need. They're a proven industry powerhouse. Oddsshark has info from around the globe, giving you the chance to access the best sports odds on the planet. So whether you want to check out tonight's football odds, this week's hockey or basketball trends, or anything in between, head on over to Oddsshark and start thinking like a shark today.
Yeah, man. Like you said, Oddsshark is a free resource. There's no reason not to use it, especially, if you're a beginner better, seasoned better. Why not get another perspective? Why not read some of their articles? And our favorite part about Oddsshark is that you can compare the odds. You can go on their website. You get a column of, I want to bet on a futures odd, which we're going to talk about in a little bit here on who's going to win, the AFC West. You can see what this website is offering, what the next website is offering, and then you can shop around and make sure you're getting the best number. Because as we've talked about a million times, Chad, there's nothing worse than putting a bet in, feeling good about the ticket that you're holding, and then realizing, oh, actually, if I had just taken 18 seconds to do a little research, I would have known I could have got a better number somewhere else.
Yeah. That's going to be frustrating as hell, man. You got to shop around. And like you said, it's a free resource. I've had a lot of my friends ask me, how much does it cost to sign up for Oddsshark? And I'm like, dog, it's free. You don't have to pay anything. You can go there right now. Anybody can go there right now. If you're listening to this, type it in on your phone. Go check it out. Look at some of the odds for this weekend. You want to check out some golf odds. Golf season right now as well. Baseball's just finished the All-Star break and everything. Futures, like we're about to talk about here. You want to go over to Oddsshark and make sure you're getting the best number. We're going to take a look at the AFC West and the futures odds for that. I'll just go ahead and give you a rundown of the numbers here.
Okay.
We've got Denver plus 550, Kansas City minus 300. The LA Chargers are plus 575, and the Raiders are plus 1,800.
All right. Instantly, here's what's sticking out to me. Chiefs minus 300. I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're, if the odds were even, that's who I would take, right? Mm-hmm. Do I worry a little bit about, a Super Bowl hangover with the Chiefs? This is a real thing. I think the Super Bowl hangover is a very real thing. Those players are getting extra wear and tear in their body, like you said, 2 years in a row with the extended playoffs. And I think the Chiefs, I wouldn't be surprised if they bowed out, man, and they weren't the AFC West champions. 1 or 2 injuries, and that bet is dead. Patrick Mahomes goes out, for instance. That bet is dead, and I'm not liking him anymore. I like the Chargers at 575.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, I do as well, because Justin Herbert had an amazing rookie season last year. You got our buddy Austin Eckler's back and presumably healthy. That's what he told us. And I think that can be a dangerous team. I think they've shored up a lot of the problems that they had last year. They added some depth at a lot of positions. They got better on the offensive line. I think that they could be a dangerous team this year. And that's who I would put some money on, to be honest with you, because it's a good number, plus 575. I don't think that's too bad. I'm surprised that Las Vegas is so high, that they're plus 1,800. I know they had the greatest year last year, but it felt like, they're a couple games away from, they're only 1 or 2 games away from making the playoffs. So there's some interesting
1,800.
Yeah, which is crazy as hell.
Wow, no faith in John Gruden.
Yeah, and it's actually gotten worse, because they opened at plus 1,200, and now they're already at plus 1,800.
That is interesting. I agree with you on Herbert, Chad. I'm going to go out on the record now and say I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, I'm not going to say I wouldn't be surprised. I think Justin Herbert is going to be all pro next year.
Oh, wow.
I think, dude, he impressed me so much last year. Good. With no offensive line.
Yeah.
Now they've upgraded the offensive line on top
Eckler was out too, so, there's a big safety
with other
blanket.
injuries as well, absolutely. Yeah. So there's already that quarterback jump where even if someone has a shitty rookie year or an average rookie year, you can expect they're obviously going to be better their second year in the NFL. Yeah. So Herbert's going to be better than he already was, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. Then you give him an increased offensive line. And I'm sorry, I'm not an Anthony Lynn guy. I think that head coach held them back a lot. There were so many close games that they could have won, I think, if they had a better head coach. So now you've got in my opinion, an improved head coach. I can see the Chargers winning that division, and I love 575.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think that's a great number. That's something you definitely got to jump on. They got the offensive coordinator from the Rams, or was it the quarterback's coach?
I don't remember.
We talked about it with Austin Eckler. I forget what it was. But
he was talking about how he had those plays, drawn up for him with he had that up on the board he saw. But man, the Raiders at plus, you said plus 1,800?
Yeah.
Dude, that's worth, I'm going to say pizza money, man. I'll throw $10 or $12 on something
why
like
not,
that.
Dude?
Again, it's the NFL. it's parity.
Yeah.
We see all the time, every year, some last place team comes back and wins the division. So at those kind of odds, that's kind of staggering. I'm happy to throw a couple bucks at that as well. So those are my two, man. It's the Raiders and the Chargers.
Yeah. I don't blame you. So their head coach is Brandon Staley. He's the defensive coordinator for the Rams, and previously with Broncos, Bears. He was in the college ranks with John Carroll and James Madison. That was John Carroll's a team that I grew up. My grandpa went to John Carroll, actually.
Yeah.
But so that I think that's a great number right there. I would totally jump on that, man. I'm surprised it's so high, but with Kansas City being so good the last few years, of course they're going to be the favorite. But I think that's an interesting division to get on top of, man, to go and place a bet on, because it is there are some good numbers there, and I feel like dude, I wouldn't even mind throwing some money down on the Raiders. You know, I'm not saying they're going to win it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But I could see Kansas City stumbling. They got a new rebuilt offensive line. You know, they're going to have some growing pains for sure. You know what I mean? And if they get, we saw Patrick Mahomes got injured in the Cleveland Browns game last year in the divisional round. If he doesn't stay healthy, their whole season's, going to hell. But it'll be interesting to see, man. It's going to be an interesting division. I wouldn't just crown Kansas City just yet. Obviously, they're the favorite, and they should be. But I would not be surprised if we see some the LA Chargers make some noise, or the Raiders.
Yeah, I could see that, man. I think the Chiefs are going to struggle out of the gates. A couple episodes ago, I was talking about that Week 1 game with the Browns and the Chiefs, 6-point spread. And I said, you know what, I don't want to touch this game, but I think I could see the Browns pulling an upset here.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to happen, man. I could see the Chiefs starting off really sluggish this year, just because we've seen it before with teams that lose the Super Bowl. Yeah. They're exhausted. They're overconfident, whatever you want to call it. And I could see that. The only hesitation that I have with that prediction, I just respect the hell out of Andy Reid, man.
Yeah, I love Andy Reid.
And you got to assume he's going to have that team ready. But I'm still concerned for the Chiefs. Now, would I be shocked if the Chiefs win the division? Absolutely not. Yeah, I'm not that far down on them. I'm just saying, at minus 300, hell no.
Yeah, definitely not. And like we said, LA, I think that they're going to be a team of the future. I think that Herbert obviously proved himself last year. So it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be a great NFL season.
Derwin James?
Added the 17th game, too. If he can stay healthy, that guy's constantly injured. Absolutely. You know what I mean? He's obviously an incredible talent when he is healthy. But the key is can he stay healthy, So
agreed.
It's going to be interesting. I was actually just talking to my girl. We're going to be out in LA and San Diego area. And I checked the schedule, and the Browns are playing the Chargers the same weekend. We're going to be out there. So I'm like, dude, I'm going to have to go out there and see Austin. Be wearing my Browns gear, of course, you know what I'm saying? But hopefully we'll be mad if Austin got, $150 on us, but we still win. You know what I mean? That'd be awesome. So, so make sure you head on over to Oddsshark. That's ODDSSHARK.com. Find out make sure you're getting the best numbers you possibly can on any of these lines. They also have great articles, like we said. You want to read something about like some of these boxing matches that are coming up, or anything that's going on, or they can teach you how to
UFC.
bet. Yeah, they can teach you how to bet too. They have a lot of great information for first-time bettors or seasoned bettors and everything. And so make sure you head on over to Oddsshark, check them out, and check out some of their numbers and everything, and tell them we sent you.
Absolutely.
All right, with that being said, we're going to get into our interview with Jordan Zirm. He's an awesome writer, and we're going to talk a little NBA draft and everything.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man.
Yeah. All right, our guest today runs the immensely popular The Checkdown. He's also written about music, movies, and pop culture for Complex magazine. And like me, he's a big Cleveland sports fan. We're super happy to welcome to the show Jordan Zirm. How you doing, brother? Thanks for coming on the show today.
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me. Hope you guys are well.
Yeah, we're good, man. We're good. We're going to get right to it. Like we said, you're a Cavs fan. I'm a Cavs fan as well. We just saw that Matthew Dellavedova signed with Melbourne United. I want to know, how will the Cavs ever recover from his absence, man? How are we going to replace that 2.8 points per game, man?
Oh, man. Delly's one of those players that'll just always hold a special place in Cavs fans' hearts, but also, it's time, watching him last couple of seasons probably has been a little tough. I'm not sure if he hit more than 1 out of the 300 threes that he attempted.
Like Chad said, we're excited to talk to you about the NBA draft, man. So I'm curious, what's the likelihood that Detroit trades out of the number 1 spot? And if they do you think the Cavs have enough to get a deal done?
Yeah, so there's a lot of smoke around the Detroit stuff, but I still can't believe that they would actually pass up on Cade Cunningham and the the chance to take him, or even if it's Jalen Green. Like there's some reports out that they really like Jalen Green, who's probably my favorite player in this draft. But I still think like for them, they would just have to be blown away by an offer to move back. And so for the Cavs, like obviously a lot of the stuff that has been floating around has obviously been including Colin Sexton. You'd package that number 3 pick. Maybe you get Kevin Love in there. Maybe you know, one of the younger players that the Cavs have, whether it's Isaac Okoro or Garland, who I personally like would not move. So I think it's going to be hard for the Cavs to move up to number 1, just because I think Detroit is going to ask for a ton, because I still think Detroit's in the driver's seat. Like they can kind of blow smoke and try to freak people out about who they want to take. And so I think it's less than like, I think it's, I would give it like a 10% chance, honestly. Like I think they're going to stay put. But for the Cavs, it really, I think, if they were to move up, whether it's 1 or 2 or whatever happens, I really think it's how teams feel about Colin Sexton, like if how high they are on him, because he's going to be the driver along with that number 3 pick of any trade. And so it's really going to be like, how does Detroit or how does Houston feel about Colin Sexton? And I'm just not quite sure he moves the needle in terms of like the player that they could pick at spots 1 or 2.
Yeah, definitely. Just hypothetically, you said that you would give up a lot to get Cade Cunningham. What would you give up? Would you give up Colin Sexton if you're in the Cavs position?
Oh, I do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And this is like, you know, this is no offense to Colin Sexton whatsoever. And I know people can like, sometimes it gets a little personal and stuff. Like Colin Sexton is a fantastic offensive player. You know, he was the first guy picked for this sort of second rebuild. I understand why Cavs fans have an attachment to him, but like, I think Cade Cunningham, you could just drop him in immediately on the wing, and he changes his team's ceiling. He pushes them to another level immediately, just because he can, not only can he score, but he can bring the ball up the court. He's an excellent ball handler. He's a great playmaker. Like he just does a ton of stuff that the Cavs have been missing for so long. So, yeah, I would move Colin immediately if that were on the table.
Yeah, definitely. I feel you. And going along with what you said there, I've often felt that Colin Sexton is like a great number 2 or third option on a championship caliber team. I don't know that he is the premier option just yet. Obviously, he's gotten better every single year. Last year, he had another great year statistically and everything like that. Offensively, he's doing great. But I still feel like the Cavs are still missing that superstar player, the guy that's going to I mean, obviously, there's not very many LeBron James and Kevin Durant and these types of guys, but we still need that number 1 option offensively, I feel like.
Yeah, they definitely do. And that's why I'm so high on Jalen Green too, because, you know, he's not quite Cade, like he's not the playmaker that Cade is, but I think as far as like scoring goes, that dude can just get a shot whenever he wants. He can pull up from 3, which is something that Colin is still working on. Colin still doesn't quite take enough threes per game for, I think, what the modern NBA is. So no, I'm right there with you. That's why it's, you know, we'll see what happens at number 3. I wish the Cavs are going to be in a position to take Jalen Green. They may not be, but I'm with you. I think like this draft has guys that can be that number 1 option and that quote unquote star that you're looking for to sort of build around. And so it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you said, we had the Cavs had the 3rd pick in the draft this year. Recently, there's been like a little reported rumor. I don't know if it's been totally verified, but the Houston Rockets at number 2 have given Jalen Green a promise. There's been a little bit of hubbub about that on Twitter. How credible do you think that is? I saw that Kevin Porter Jr. kind of insinuated as much on TikTok or whatever the hell it is that he was on. Does that leave the Cavs with Evan Mobley, do you think, or could they even go with Jonathan is it Zaminga or
Kuminga?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think there's some credence to the Jalen Green stuff. Like I've definitely heard that he has shut down, like he's not working out for any more teams. Like he's done working out. Like I don't think he's giving the Cavs a workout, because I do think that whether it's the Rockets or whether like it would shock everybody and it's the Pistons who are just like, hey, we're gonna take you instead of Cade. I don't think that's the case. So I do think there is some credence for the rumors about Houston giving him a promise. And so I do think that if the Cavs, like if it's Green and Cade 1 or 2, which is seemingly how it's going to go, and the Cavs can't work a trade, then I do think it's Evan Mobley. I know there was just a report yesterday that the Cavs just had a private workout with Jonathan Kuminga, and I think he's a good player. He was on that same G League Ignite team as Jalen Green. I think he's a little less polished, and I think he's going to take a little more time to sort of develop. So I wouldn't take him at 3. I think Mobley's really good. I think like if that's who's left at 3, then like I'm not going to be upset about it. So I do think that I think Green's going to go 1 or 2, probably 2. And I do think the Cavs are going to have Evan Mobley kind of fall to them.
Yeah. And so if the Cavs do get Mobley at 3, I mean, if you'd have told me beginning of the season or middle of the season that we would have the opportunity to draft Mobley, I'd have been ecstatic about that, obviously. You live out in L.A. He was at USC. What do you like about his game, and how do you think it'll fit with the Cavs? A lot of people obviously are concerned about pairing him with Jarrett Allen and how that'll work out. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's stuff like this, especially where the Cavs are at. Like, you shouldn't let fit or anything like that determine who you take yet. So while I do think like Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley you're gonna have to figure out how to use them both to their fullest potential while they're both on the court. And it's hard because, neither one is really a shooter yet, especially Jarrett Allen. Evan Mobley has shown some flashes, like he has a jumper. He's gone out past the 3-point line a handful of times. That's still a work in progress, but so it's going to be hard because one of those guys, when you play them together, is going to have to space the floor a little bit because you just don't want to be clogging the paint that much in the kind of the modern NBA where you want to have 2 big guys sort of down low. But I think the potential of Evan Mobley is huge. He's maybe one of the most like talented sort of, especially on the defensive end, the way that guy moves. Like the way he moves for how tall he is pretty unbelievable. And we say that about a lot of big men now, but like the way he moves is legitimately, like, defensively, he's going to be incredible from day one. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be on the offensive side where it's going to be really interesting to see how he develops. Like I said, he's got a bit of a mid-range jumper. His footwork is phenomenal. He can bring the ball up the court. Like, you're not going to ask him to do that, but he can legitimately handle the basketball. And this isn't just kind of a thing where it's like JaVale McGee every once in a while taking the ball up the court when he shouldn't. Like, Evan Mobley can legitimately like handle the ball. So I think with Mobley, it's going to come down to what is his offensive game eventually going to look like? Is he a guy that's going to be able to step out to the 3-point line and eventually, like, later in his career, like, hit the 3? And he's got to put on weight. Like, I think if you look at Anthony Davis really early on and how skinny Anthony Davis was, and now you look at Anthony Davis and it's like, wow, like that dude worked on his body. It's going to be the same thing for Evan Mobley. Like, he's probably year one, he's going to struggle to kind of bang down low because he is just a skinnier guy. But if he can add some weight, then you start to feel really good about what he can be offensively. The biggest thing with him is it's just going to take time. Like, it's going to take a couple of years before Evan Mobley is what we hope he can be. Mm-hmm. And for the Cavs sort of timeline, that's a really interesting thing because you just never know how patient someone like a Dan Gilbert or the organization is going to be. So it's really fascinating. But no, like, Cavs fans should not be bummed that like the Cavs might end up with him. Like, he really does have the potential to be a really incredible player.
Yeah, he shot 12 of 40 from threes, 30%. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see what kind of potential he has as a shooter. Do you think he's someone who can kind of stretch the floor a little bit?
I think he is, and I think he's got to be, like, especially if the Cavs hang on to Jarrett Allen, because I just don't think Jarrett Allen is going to be a guy that's ever going to, quote unquote, stretch the floor. I think like what you want Jarrett Allen to be is a guy who plays off the pick and roll, who's going to catch lobs, who's going to, be what kind of like DeAndre Ayton is right now for the Suns, a guy that's just going to like put down everything he gets and shoot a really high percentage around the rim. You don't want to like force Jarrett Allen into being a guy that's going to have to like move out. So preferably that's Evan Mobley, if that's the guy you take. And I do think he can do it. Like I just kind of talked about, like, his form on his jump shot is pretty decent. Like he doesn't look bad taking that shot. It's just like you mentioned, he didn't take a ton of threes and he didn't shoot a high percentage on them. And even from the mid range, like, you're just going to have to sort of work on that with him, and it's going to take time. So if they take him and you keep Jarrett Allen, I think you let Jarrett Allen keep doing what he's best at as sort of a rim runner and a pick and roll guy. And you work with Evan Mobley to, like, year after year, slowly let him become a guy that's going to stretch the floor a little more.
Hey, Tony, let's take a quick second to tell everybody about one of our favorite sponsors.
Yeah, man. 1740 Beard Balm. You can find out more about them at 1740beardbalm.com. I'm actually holding their signature product. It is their beard balm. You put it on your beard to make it look nice and fresh, especially if you got a big old beard. They've got other stuff on their website too, and chapstick. They've got beard soap. And what I really like about them, they're cool as shit, man. This company is cool. They've agreed that if anybody tweets us or on Facebook or on Instagram and sends us a funny text related to sports or not, they'll reward you as long as we read it on the show. And so it can be, just something that your homie sent you, making fun of referees, whatever the heck it is. They'll send you gift cards and also some free product as well. Some of their beard balm.
Yeah, check them out, man, because they got some. I'm holding some ice cream parlor right here, man. This is the shit. And if you want to smell like an ice cream parlor, you're definitely gonna be making out with some girls downtown. You know what I'm saying? You put some of this on, they're like, "Oh my god, who smells like Superman ice cream?" You're like, "I don't know, probably me, baby. Come on over here."
Superman ice cream. Nice.
That was my shit, man, back in the day. But yeah, they got all kinds of different flavors, smells, scents, whatever you want to call it. But dude, I got to try out some of this ice cream parlor. I'm about to show up at my girl's house, just be like, "Yo, what's up, baby?" And she's like, "Oh my god, who wants to? You want to go to Baskin Robbins?" I'm like, "I got Baskin Robbins all up in this beer, baby." What you talking about? But yeah, make sure you check them out at 1740beerbalm.com. He shot nearly 70% from the line, which usually portends well. Look for that mid range, and then also hopefully being able to stretch the floor eventually after a couple years in being seasoned and getting some practice work and everything like that.
For sure, man. I'm curious who you don't like in this draft. Is there anybody that's sort of projected in the top 10 or 15 that you think actually has some high bust potential?
That's a really good question. I think there's one guy that scares me, and I don't think the Cavs are going to take him, but a guy that's kind of become like Scotty Barnes from Florida State is a guy that a lot of people have been very high on, and for good reason. I mean, like, you know, he's a very talented dude. He's a phenomenal defender. He's really athletic, but he reminds me a little bit of Isaac Okoro in that very similar thing where like the shot just wasn't there in college. And that's not to say that it can't be. I think we've seen like what shooting coaches in the NBA can do for guys. I think you look at Lonzo Ball this year and like what he's turned into a really good 3-point shooter. His form is completely different. And he's worked with, I'm going to blank on the name of the shooting coach over there in New Orleans, but he's talked about how much work he's put in on his shot. And like, so, you know, these guys are crazy talented. And if their form is okay, like they can work on it and they'll get better. But I think if you're specifically from the Cavs point of view, you know, for a while there was talk of like, oh, the Cavs should trade back and like see what's up there. And then maybe you take somebody like Scotty Barnes. I just think it would be really tough for a team that was, I believe, last in the NBA in 3-point shooting and maybe even bottom 5 in attempts, like to add another non-shooter, especially on the wing, is tough. Even if Scotty became this really good shooter later on in his career, like I think you're focused on Isaac Okoro becoming a better shooter just in general. And I think it's hard for the Cavs to add a guy that's just kind of known as a non-shooter. So he's the one guy that would scare me. I know there's people that are really high on him and think that like you just take him and you worry about that later. But I think the Cavs have already kind of done that with Okoro and kind of focused their energy there. And I think it would be tough to add another non-shooter to a team that's already just like needs as many shooters as they can get right now.
I totally agree. My thinking is that the Cavs need to take the best player available. I feel like we still need like an abundance of talent. We need an influx of talent, no matter what position that guy plays at. Obviously, I don't want us drafting another point guard, but it would be nice to just add some talent to this team because I feel like that's what we lack severely. And with that being said, Colin Sexton is the best player on this team right now, at least statistically. Some could argue that Darius Garland's probably going to make that jump next year, and he showed a lot of flashes this year. Had a great year after what a lot of people could consider a disappointing rookie campaign. But he's playing with USA Basketball right now, having a great summer. He looks like he could be the real deal. My thing is that the Cavs need more and more talent. So there's no way they're going to trade Colin Sexton, right? Unless they get this overwhelmingly great package.
Yeah, I think with Colin, it's more complicated than just how good of a player is because, obviously the big thing is like he's going to be up for this max contract extension. And the Cavs have to ask themselves a question of whether they want to get locked in financially to a guy that I think a lot of us are sort of unsure, like what exactly he's going to become, because I think there are questions like, okay, has he hit his ceiling already? Like, is he pretty much going to be the player he is right now for most of his career? He may get even more efficient scoring the basketball, but he's not quite the well-rounded player that you usually see kind of getting max deals. So it's really interesting. I do think that like, yes, the Cavs are going to have to get blown away by an offer. Like they're not going to give him up for, there's been this, well, they could send him to the Knicks and you'd get Obi Toppin back and you'd get Kevin Knox back. I'm like, I have no interest in that because that doesn't match the value of what Colin's going to bring you. And you might as well just like keep him for another year and don't max him right now and then figure it out later if that's the best you can get. But I do think there is something to be said as well. And this is something I've mentioned. Like, I do think it's also kind of hard for Colin. Like he's in a weird spot because he's that first pick of the rebuild and all of a sudden he's the face of the franchise. Then the Cavs take Darius Garland, and now you see Garland, like he's on Team USA. He's kind of morphed into the face of the Cavs a little bit, and that's got to be hard for Colin. And then 2, the Cavs are going to take, whoever they take at number 3 is going to be another guy that's going to, probably have more fanfare than Colin does. So I think there's part of me too, and I wouldn't blame him for this at all, where like he may just want a fresh start somewhere else where he doesn't have to feel like, wait a second, like I got drafted, you guys kind of made me the face, and now I feel like I'm third fiddle to sort of Garland and whoever they take. So I think there is something to be said for a fresh start from both sides. But no, I agree. Like the Cavs should not move him just to move him. That doesn't make any sense. Especially if they take Mobley, like then you still have these 2 guards in Garland and Sexton that still can work together and play off a big man. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I agree. Like they shouldn't move him for anything less than they feel like is some legitimately really good value.
Totally agree.
We've spent so much of our time today talking about the top half of the draft. And frankly, I think that's more fun because these are the elite players, right? But I'm really curious, who are some players later in the draft that you think present some value that kind of get you excited?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I think like with the Cavs, it'll be interesting because there's been rumors that like, okay, they take somebody at 3 and then maybe they move back into the back end of the draft and see what's there. I'm not sure like who's going to be available. I think one of the names that's kind of come out to me, Moses Moody is a guy that plays for Arkansas. That's a really good player. I'm not sure where he's going to go. I've seen him, some mocks he's top 10, some mocks he's sort of in the back end of that. But he's a guy that I've watched a little bit of because I went to Mizzou for school, and Mizzou played Arkansas a handful of times. They're both kind of in the SEC, and he's a guy that he's kind of a really nice prototypical wing and a guy that can shoot, guy that has some ball handling ability, and that's a guy sort of in the maybe outside of the top 10 if he makes it that far, which he could. That's a guy that I think people are really, really high on, and I totally get why, just because like wings that can shoot. And Arkansas, I believe, was like one of the top shooting 3-point teams in college basketball last season. And Moody was a big part of that. So he's a guy that definitely gets me excited for teams that are kind of picking outside the top 10.
Yeah, I also look at a guy like Corey Kispert. He's kind of what we were kind of hoping Dylan Windler would be, and hasn't materialized yet. He's had a couple of injury problems in the last few years. Missed all of his rookie campaign, and had seemingly on and off the injured list last year and everything. So he would be a guy that I would look at if we're going to try and get back into the latter part of the first round, or late lottery, so to speak, because we need shooters, as you said. The Cavs were in the bottom, if not the bottom of the league in terms of 3-point shooting and everything. So that would be someone I'm intrigued by. I want to ask you, I watched Jalen Green's tape, and I am definitely enamored with this guy. I was hoping to God that we would get the second pick so that we could at least have the opportunity to take him, and hopefully Houston was dumb enough to pass up on him. As of right now, at least reading the tea leaves, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Do you think that Jalen Green, your personal opinion, do you think he will be, does he have more star power and potential than Cade Cunningham? Could you see him being, 5 years from now, we're talking about Jalen Green was the steal of this draft, even at number 2?
Yeah. Oh, I think there's like no doubt. I mean, like I said, I think Cade is more sort of well-rounded, and especially as a playmaker, can do some things that Jalen is still working on, like kind of passing out of the pick and roll and seeing the whole court. But like when you watch Jalen Green, the athleticism and just like fluidness that he plays the game with is just like, that dude has springs in his legs. He can get to the bucket whenever he wants. He's got a nasty step back 3 move. Watched him. There's a clip of him with G League Ignite where like it's a fast break and he starts next to his defender and then takes like 2 steps and is like gone, and the defender can't. So like he is just, I think when you just talk about like a dynamic scorer, like he is it. And if he kind of rounds out his game in terms of like his passing and a little bit of his playmaking, like absolutely I could see him becoming sort of a star. And I also like Cade by no fault of his own. Cade's a quiet guy. Cade's not really like a personality wise isn't quite the same as Jalen is. Jalen's like rocking the short shorts and he's got crazy hair, and like Jalen's just a personality, and I love it. And so like no, I think there's no doubt that like I think Cade's going to be phenomenal, but I think just watching Jalen play, like just his style of play gets me really excited. So no, I definitely think there's a chance that that Jalen, when it's all said and done, could be the guy from this draft.
Yeah. Last couple of questions, and we're going to let you go here, Jordan. Obviously, the Cavs got extremely lucky with LeBron being from the area. I'm from Mansfield, an hour south of Cleveland. And I'm 6 months older than LeBron. I played basketball in high school, so everyone knew about this guy. We all were hoping and wishing that he would go to the Cavs. We got lucky as hell and got him. It's not going to be another 50 years before the best player in basketball is from 20 minutes away. But it's back to reality now for the Cavs. They're going to have to build through the draft. We're obviously not going to get any big time free agents unless they were to overpay. I want to ask you, how would you rate the Cavaliers' last few drafts? We haven't moved up, obviously, and I feel like with Colin Sexton being a number 8 pick, that was a obvious steal for a guy that's now averaging nearly 25 points a game. But what kind of grade or assessment would you give them, some of the guys they've got? And then also, obviously, a lot of it is contingent upon what's going to happen here at the draft this year. But what would you how would you grade their drafts of the last few years?
Yeah, I think you definitely hit on it. I mean, I think I'd give them a solid B for what they've done. Yeah, they were in a position at number 8. That's a tough place to pick a player. It's almost kind of it's a toss up there. And yeah, I think they hit on Colin Sexton. I think part of the unfortunate part of the narrative around Colin is people forget that he was a number 8 pick and they sort of just thrust him onto this completely rebuilding team. And that's just a hard place to be in. So, and then I think, if people follow me on Twitter know how high I am on Darius Garland. And I think what we're going to see from him in year 3 is going to be a huge leap. And so to get him at number 5, that's a really big deal. That should turn out as a great pick. But I do think there are still some guys we have to see how it plays out. Isaac Okoro, I love the pick. And I think if he can bump his outside shooting up, he's going to be a really good player, but that still remains to be seen. He really struggled offensively as a rookie, especially from 3. So the jury's still out. And then same thing with Dylan Windler. He hasn't been able to stay healthy in his first 2 years. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well, which is the one thing that he's supposed to do well. So the jury remains out on Dylan. So I think there's a couple of hits and there's a couple of we still got to see.
Yeah.
And I could see Dylan Windler not being in the league after his rookie contract.
Same.
So you never know. But I'd give it a solid B right now. And I do think they are in, getting the number 3 pick was huge. I wanted them to get a top 4 pick. And fortunately they did. And this is a really big draft, but they may just have a player sort of land in their lap where they don't have to make a hard decision like they may have if they were picking 5, 6, 7, which I think is a blessing.
Totally. I totally agree.
Yeah. So I would give them a solid B. Nice. With room for that to move up, especially if Okoro becomes, I think you saw flashes from him and what he can do. And if he can become a decent outside shooter and it opens up the rest of his game, then you're starting to feel pretty good about what they've been able to do. So they've picked in some weird spots and, they didn't have a lot of lottery luck with Garland, with Okoro, and with the Sexton picks. Now they've had a little bit of luck. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, thanks for not mentioning Kevin Porter Jr. during that whole assessment either, dude. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it, man. Let's just pretend that never happened, dude. That never happened.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it is sort of a thing where overall you kind of do have to look at that pick, and they took a risk on a player that had some background issues and it flamed out. So, luckily they didn't take him at number 2 overall.
Yeah.
That would have hurt a little bit more. They were able to kind of snatch him in the back half of the first round, but it is, it's a bummer. I don't like the idea of thinking about him and Jalen Green playing together.
Oh God, Jesus, dude.
So
you had to say it, man.
So I try to not think about it.
Yeah. Same here.
Before we let you go, a couple of housekeeping items. We're going to send you a bottle of whiskey in the mail to thank you for coming on the show.
Wow.
This is Still Austin. This is our favorite whiskey distillery here in Austin, Texas. So Chad's going to reach out and ask you for your address, and that's why he's asking you.
I'm not going to stalk you, and I'm not going to show up in LA. I promise. I promise. Yeah.
And then the question I've been waiting to ask you, man. I'm a huge fan of I Think You Should Leave, and I know you are too. So I'm trying to get Chad. I'm trying to get Chad into the show. He's stubborn. He's a stand-up comic, so he's stubborn and picky about his comedy. So I'm picking my spots. The 2 episodes I've had him watch so far, from season 1, the cell phone Instagram episode 1, and then the Babysitter Is Late episode. Those are the 2 I've had him watch. If I'm trying to sell him on this show and he's not totally sold yet, what is the next episode that Chad should watch in order to recruit him into this I Think You Should Leave cult?
Oh, man. I love the Instagram one is great to introduce. I think that's a great choice to introduce. Yeah. That's one where I've gotten my friends back. Okay, just watch this one. Yep. He's not Tim's not even in that one, but it makes it's just it's really good. I would say The hot dog car one where they're trying to figure out who drove the hot dog car into a store is incredible. I just finished season 2, so I'd love to give some love to the one that killed me. I mean, there's a bunch in season 2, but the one in season 2 where he's on a haunted house tour.
Yes.
And he, I won't spoil it.
Yeah.
But he just keeps asking hilarious questions about what's going on with the ghosts in this haunted house. That's another one.
That and the road rage one. The road rage one from season 2 is my other favorite one. Yeah. For sure.
I'll have to check it out. Just so good. All of them are so, it's just one of the most unique things I've ever watched.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of time. When I first watched the first season, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Now I'm absolutely in love with it. So
some of the episodes get better the more you watch them, which is great. For sure. You appreciate 100%. It more, for sure. Hey, speaking of appreciation, we really appreciate your time here today, brother. Man. Thank you so much. This is an awesome interview.
Yeah, make sure you give him a follow on Twitter at Jordan Zirm, JordanZirm, and at the Checkdown, on Instagram at CLEVE Zirm. And at the Checkdown on Instagram, also Facebook.com/the Checkdown. Jordan Zirm, thanks for coming on the show, brother. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you guys so much for having me. This was really fun. Draft will be here before you know it.
I know, dude. Can't wait, man. We'd love to get you on sometime during the season and talk some Cavs and the rest of the NBA as well, brother.
Absolutely. Just let me know, man. We'll
awesome.
To do it.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, that was Jordan Zirm of the Checkdown. Awesome interview. Great to talk about the NBA draft, one of my favorite sports, one of my favorite times of the year, man. I love the NBA draft. I don't know if you know this about me, but the NBA draft, as a Cavs fan, is one of the few moments of hope that we have, especially post-LeBron. So I'm really excited. I feel like the Cavs are going to get a good player no matter what. That's what we need, and this is what I've been telling my buddies. We just need an infusion of talent, and I feel like we're definitely going to get that with the number 3 pick. I don't feel like they can screw it up. There's only a couple of guys that I feel like are really on the board there, and Jordan highlighted some of those guys. So it's going to be interesting. I'll take Evan Mobley, all day long. I think that guy's going to be a good player. I think that right now you get who you get the best talent, and then you decide later. You let their play decide, and you figure out who's going to be on the court. Whether they re-signed Jared Allen this summer, and Evan Mobley comes in and he's killing it. You know what I'm saying? Then maybe you can move Jared Allen or what have you. If he's not doing so well, then you got an insurance policy with Jared Allen, and you can give this guy a couple years to develop. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Cavs do. It'll be interesting to see. Like he said there's about a 10% chance that Detroit trades that pick. So don't think that that's going to happen.
I think that's about right. And I agree with you, Chad. I love the NBA draft. Here's why I do. Let's compare it to other drafts real quick. So baseball, you draft this phenom.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to see him play for
5 years. Yeah,
okay?
4 or 5 years.
Good luck. Yeah, right. In NFL, I also love the NFL draft because those players can play right away, like in basketball. Mm-hmm. But even if you get a great starting defensive end, that's really 1/22 of your team, of your starting roster, really. So the impact of that player can be big, but in basketball, your starting roster's 5.
Yeah, 20%.
And exactly, man. And if you get a phenom, if you get a game changer, that can turn your entire friggin' franchise around. So I feel like every pick in the NBA draft has so much weight to it, and it makes the whole event a lot more exciting.
Yeah, as we kind of alluded there with Jordan, the Cavs picked Kevin Porter Jr., I believe the number 30th pick 2 years ago in the NBA draft, and he had a really good rookie season. Everyone that watched him, myself included, saw the potential in this guy. We're really, really excited about him coming into the second year. He had a couple off-the-court issues, which was why he fell so far in the draft. That's why he was a 30th pick and not a top 10 pick.
Right.
Because he had top 10 talent. But he ended up going 30th to the Cavs, and they took a gamble. It didn't pay off. He had some problems with the front office, problems with some teammates, allegedly, and they shipped him out for basically a provisional second-round pick from Houston. Basically nothing. So they got basically nothing for him, and he had a 50-point game late in the season for Houston this year already.
That stings.
So, yeah, that stings a little bit as a Cavs fan because you feel like, oh, dude, if we had this guy, we'd be set right now. Evan Mobley would be the clear-cut pick for the Cavs right now. Instead, we're kind of searching for a guy that can fill that role that Kevin Porter Jr. Left has been void since he left. We're still looking for a wing that's a guy that can play on the wing, that's athletic, that can shoot, that can distribute a little bit, that can run the floor, that can run the break and everything like that. So, yeah, that stings a little bit, but hopefully, we don't know what's going to end up happening in his career. He could end up not playing too much next year. If he gets into a Houston, you never know what's going to happen with some of these guys.
Sure.
So, and that's all water under the bridge. But it's interesting to see that he said he thought that Jalen Green could potentially be the number one player in this draft. And that's something that I thought as well. He played in the G League last year. He didn't go the college route like the rest of the guys that are going to be taken in the top 5. Or Kuminga might not be in he might be a top 5, and he didn't play. He was in the G League as well last year, but top 3 or 4 picks. So it'll be interesting to see, man, because I kind of want Jalen Green. I hope the Rockets are dumb and don't end up picking him and he falls to the Cavs, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen from some of the rumors that I've heard out there and everything. So,
Chad, from a betting perspective, it sounds like, now we're way early because the friggin' draft hasn't even happened, but it sounds like you like Jalen Green for a Rookie of the Year prop bet.
That's a great point, and those numbers will be out soon.
Yep.
And once they are out, we definitely have to take a look at those because Jalen Green could be. I mean, this guy averaged nearly 20 points a game in the G League last year, going up against other professional players. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, it's not the NBA, but it's a step down. I feel like there's more talent in the G League than there is in college basketball, and he averaged damn near 20 points a game last year. You know, Cade Cunningham was around that same clip in college, you know, against lesser players, in my opinion, not grown men, not guys that are making a living off of this yet. But it'll be interesting, man. Yeah, I hope and pray to God that Jalen somehow falls to number 3. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. But the good thing is the Cavs will get some talent. And I think if you're a fan of other teams in the draft this year, I think there's a very interesting draft because I think there is a lot of talent. And a lot of people are saying it's top-heavy, top 5 picks, or you want to have a top 5 pick. But I think there's some value in later in the lottery. We talked about Corey Kispert out of Gonzaga. Jordan mentioned Moses Moody out of Arkansas. These are guys that could definitely have an impact. There's a lot of guys that we've seen in the last few years that weren't top 2 or 3, top 5 picks that were later in the lottery that are having making a big impact on their teams and everything. So it's going to be interesting, man. Make sure you tweet at us. Who do you want your favorite team to pick? Who's some of the guys you're looking at? Who are some of the guys that you think?
Yeah, maybe we're missing the boat. Maybe there's some guy out there that you think is going to make a big impact that people are sleeping on late in the draft. We'd love to hear from you on that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know who's some of the guys you're looking at, who the guys you think might be sleepers, who are some of the guys you think are overrated. Let us know. Hit us up, and we'll talk to you about that. Maybe we'll talk about it on the show, and then we'll see where they fall in the draft, if they fall, and what have you. So you can hit us up on social media. All of our social media names is at DNP-CD Sports on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Also, make sure you check out hotpiemedia.com. You can view and listen to all of our past episodes. You can also check out some of the other awesome podcasts that Hot Pie has on their network, a bunch of great podcasts that will satiate any desire that you have. They've got a plethora
Any desire?
Just about, man. Just about, man. We'll see. But yeah, make sure you get hotpiemedia.com. Go check them out. Follow them on social media as well. Follow us on social media at DNP-CD Sports. Leave us a review. Tell your friends about the show. Share,
thumbs up us on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah, share it on your social medias. We would greatly appreciate it. This is a great interview, man. This is really exciting.
Fun day, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was a great day. So give us a follow. Make sure you give Jordan a follow as well, at Jordan Zirm on Twitter and at Cleveland, CLEVE Zirm on Instagram. And then also check out at the Checkdown on Twitter. Awesome website. They got almost 500,000 followers. They got some great content on there. It's not just basketball. They got football on there as well. So check them out. This is another great episode of the DNP-CD Sports Podcast presented by Oddsshark. And before we go, we want to tell you a little bit more about Oddsshark. They are your source for the latest odds from leading authorities, expert editorial content, and detailed matchup picks. Looking for statistics and trends for an upcoming game? Oddsshark has that too, and it's fake. In-depth expert analysis, stats, numbers, and trends to help you make the sharp game day picks. Whether you want to check out tonight's football odds, this week's hockey or basketball trends, or anything in between, head over to Oddsshark and start thinking like a shark today. That's ODDSSHARK.com. You can't make a bet without checking out Oddsshark. So make sure you give them a follow. Check them out on Twitter as well.
Yeah,
they got some great content on there as well.
Yeah, they post lines every once in a while, which is really exciting. I like it.
Yeah, definitely. So we appreciate you guys listening, watching the show. Please tell your friends about it. We'll see you guys next week with another great episode. For Tony, I am Chad. We'll see you guys again next week. Peace out.
Thanks for listening. You can find more episodes and all other Hot Pie Media originals baked fresh daily at our home on the web at hotpiemedia.com, the Hot Pie Media YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts.